Dzisiaj zobaczymy sobie zadymiarza Grom w akcji, ale na początek odbierzemy sobie dzisiejszą zadanie. Ja już zapomniałem. A, dzisiaj jest... Jas! Skiny za prawdziwe pieniądze. Ale taka fajna laska. Trzeba przyznać, mamy jeszcze 10 monet. A, już jest saneczka z glif. Tak chodziło i dlatego było podnowić, dlatego że saneczka z glif, ja mam tutaj takie skiny. Dzisiaj. I za... Tutaj jeszcze sobie przestikuję. O, dzisiaj misja. Więc my się widzimy za chwilę.
Hear all of them at the end of the video if you'd like.
More hockey, less talking.
Mission successful. Optimism is lack of information. Bravo, Oscar, Mike. Grom's main attack, Bud Go Boom. For his attack, he hurls his exploding walkie-talkie, who is named Bud. He can throw it over walls, and when it lands, it splits into 4 different directions. Now, the projectiles can affect multiple targets, which makes it great anytime enemies bunch up, but keep in mind that the attack pattern is fairly predictable. By the way, the damage is the same whether you get hit by the actual walkie-talkie or if one of the split projectiles hits you. Grom's Super, Grom Bomb. The Grom Super is pretty much a bigger, scarier version of his attack in pretty much every way. He can throw it further, it has a massive range, it deals way more damage, and it can even break walls and grass. In fact, it will break walls very often because of its insane range and size. Grom's gadget, Watchtower. When Grom activates his gadget, he places a watchtower in his location that will slowly lose health over time. The tower has a massive radius and makes it so that Grom and his teammates can see into bushes within that area. You want to keep one thing in mind though, and that is the fact that this does not affect invisible enemies. So Leon or enemies hidden by Sandy's super will not be visible, even when within range of this watchtower. Grom's first star power, Foot Patrol. This star power gives Grom a 15% faster movement speed when Grom's super is fully charged. Now, that makes him just as fast as Max, Crow, or Morris. And in case you're curious, this actually does stack with the speed boost that comes from the speed gear. This technically makes Grom have the fastest movement speed out of all of the throwers. So even though he's a low HP brawler, he can use it to actually stay out of harm's way. I'm just not so sure if it will be worth it to not use his super though, because his super has so much damage potential. Grom's second star power, X Factor. This star power makes the splits from Grom's main attack deal up to 30% additional damage at max distance. So if his walkie directly hits a target, they will take 1,500 damage at max level, but if he hits them at the tip of its range, he'll be able to deal 1,950 damage, which is actually pretty crazy. Both of Grom's star powers are somewhat circumstantial, but I believe this is going to be the better option out of the two. Now that you know all of Grom's abilities, it's time for us to put him through the Olympics tests to see how good he is in comparison to every other brawler in the game. As always, we'll start with his worst test and make our way up to his best test. Then we'll talk about how strong I think he's going to be. The level 25 Siege Bot test. Now, this test was very difficult to be accurate on since Grom might have been able to save himself another second if each of his attacks hit the Siege Bot at max range of his radius. This is the best run that I could do though, so I think this is actually pretty fair. Now his gadgets don't buy him a lot of time and he ends up failing this test with the Siege Bot taking up the Iker with a remaining 2,703 HP, which is enough to get him 48th place out of the 53 brawlers in the game, the boss test. While Grom's super does a lot more damage than his main attack, it doesn't actually help him recharge his super any faster than normal because Grom still requires 4 regular attacks to charge it completely with or without his super. And since his reload speed is far below average, it takes Grom 96 seconds to defeat the boss, so he ends up getting 46th place, even with the help of his star power that increases damage with each attack. One thing to keep in mind is that I am recording all these Olympics tests at max level. However, I've taken the additional stat bonuses that he gets from level 9 to level 11 into consideration for his placement, the supercharge test. Now normally it takes Grom 5 hits with his main attack to charge up his super, but with his second star power equipped, he can charge his super in only 4 hits if each of them is able to hit at max range, so he's able to charge his super in 3.7 seconds, which puts him in 44th place. Like I mentioned, he actually doesn't recharge his super any faster, so his super doesn't actually help him at all. The survival test. Now Grom doesn't have any way to heal himself or prevent any amount of damage dealt to him, and with his below average health, he's only able to survive for 11.1 seconds, so he ties with Amber, Jesse, and Mr. P for 43rd place. Once again, I mentioned this at level 11, but I am comparing him him at level 9 to the other Olympics test, which just means I'll have to update the Brawl Stars Olympics videos. The reload test. It takes Grom 22.9 seconds to unload and reload 10 ammo. This puts him in a 6-way tie for 42nd place with Brock, Surge, Penny, Nani, and Terra, who all have really slow reload speeds. So you're definitely going to want to be patient with his shots and use them wisely because he has a slower than average reload speed. The assassin test. Now Grom is able to land his super right in between his first and second main attacks.
Ja bym chciał Groma dzisiaj wygrać w teledu. Będziemy grać do Ligiera
so he only deals 7,840 damage in those 3 seconds. This places him in
ale
39th place for the 3-second assassin burst test. The 3-attack kill test. Now Grom deals 1,500 damage with each main attack without the help of his second star power, but with X Factor equipped, each attack deals 1,950 damage. With 3 attacks, he deals 5,850 damage at max level, or 5,460 damage at level 9, which is enough to take out over half of the brawlers in the game, including Shelly, Mortis, and Sandy. This places him in 32nd place. The dive test. Now after throwing his super from outside the range of the Ike turret, Grom fires a shot at max range and then activates his gadget. His next 2 throws also hit at max range, and his gadget even gives him enough time to fire a 4th shot. Now Grom can actually hit the Ike turret from outside its range with his main attack if you're like in the exact perfect spot, but I make every brawler do a full dive. They cannot leave the circle, so Grom deals 7,350 damage to the Ike turret and gets 28th place. Those were all the tests that Grom was worse than half of the brawlers in, and now we're going to talk about the test where he's better than half of the brawlers in. The box test. Now this was another difficult test because auto-firing the box won't give you the extra damage from his star power, and his attacks go through the boxes, which does help him break them faster, but I have to be really careful not to hit the next group over of boxes, because that's how this test works. Grom finishes in 44.8 seconds, which is barely faster than Bull and Pam, so he gets 26th place. The 1-second DPS test. Now Grom's super actually takes a moment to actually hit the ground after it's thrown, so Grom is able to throw his main attack and hit the target with both almost at the exact same time. He's able to fire one more regular attack before his 1 second is up, and he deals 6,450 damage, which places him in 25th place. Once again, this is level 11, but I've taken that into consideration for his placement. The super damage test. Any target that gets hit by Grom's super takes 2,380 damage at power 9 and 2,550 damage at max level. Since his super can go through multiple targets and travels in 4 different directions, it is likely that he'll actually be able to deal that to multiple targets, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. Then again, there's also a chance that he'll just miss altogether. Grom gets 22nd place, which is right in front of Lola and right behind Colonel Russ for this test. The race test. Now this test is the only test where his first star power actually helps him more than his second test. None of his other abilities allow him to dash or teleport, so it's completely up to the movement speed that he gets from his second star power. With his supercharged the whole way, Grom's speed boost never goes away, and he's able to finish in 10.7 seconds, which puts him in 20th place. The area test. Now Grom's main attack and his super travel in the same pattern and in the same direction, but his super is obviously a lot bigger than his main attack. His main attack covers 28 tiles, and his super covers 64 tiles. That gives him an impressive score of 92 tiles, which puts him in 16th place, which is honestly a great indicator that Grom is really good for area control. The attack range test. Now Grom can throw his bombs 7 tiles away, but then they explode in a 7-tile radius. Now the blast doesn't actually travel in a circle, but it's easier to treat like a radius anyway because of just how it works out. In total, Grom's main attack can reach 11 tiles, which ties him with Rico for 9th place. That's a longer attack range than any thrower, and it's even longer than Byron's or Belle's attacks can reach. The swarm test. Now Grom throws his super far away to take out all of the bots except for the 6 that are closest to him. Before his super even hits the ground, Grom is able to throw a couple of bombs at the bots close to him, and the whole swarm is almost defeated all at once. In order to compare him to level 9 brawlers, I had to throw 2 additional attacks after he actually cleared the swarm, because he would normally require 2 more ammo to take out the final bots. This gives him a score of 3.8 seconds, which ties him with Griff for 9th place. And finally, we have Grom's best test, which should honestly be no surprise to you. The super range test. Now Grom can throw his super 7 2/3 tiles away, and then on top of that, they reach out an additional 9 tiles. In fact, you'll actually see the projectile far on the right actually hits a wall before it reaches its max range. This means that Grom can hit an enemy that is 16 2/3 tiles away with his super, not to mention the 3 other blasts that also try 9 tiles as well. At that range, Grom gets 5th place for super range, which is just barely behind Crow's super range. But keep in mind that Grom's super can deal way more damage at that range than Crow's possibly can. Now it's time to talk about how strong I think Grom will be in each of the game modes. modes. First up, we have Gem Grab, and just like other throwers in the game, Grom's viability in Gem Grab in pretty much any of the game modes is actually going to depend on the map that you're playing on, more so than the actual game mode. If there are lots of walls to hide behind, Grom will feel stronger, and if there are lots of choke points, where Grom can easily predict where enemies will be moving, he'll be even better. But if there's not either of that, you're probably going to want to play another brawler than Grom. Because of that, I'm going to rate him as a B tier brawler for Gem Grab. When it comes to Brawl Ball, I'm going to say C or F tier for Brawl Ball. Grom has low survivability in open maps, and even with maps that do have lots of walls, he doesn't have any great way to stop an enemy from scoring a goal, and he doesn't have any particularly great abilities at helping him score a goal. I suppose he does have a way to get rid of multiple enemy walls with his super, but I do think there are better options than him in Brawl Ball. I think C tier is probably a fair rating for him in this game mode. Next we have Heist, and I don't think that Grom will be particularly great in Heist. He doesn't consistently deal a lot of damage, and his attacks are fairly easy to dodge. I think the C tier is fair for him in Heist as well. Next is Siege, and on the right map, I actually think Grom will be pretty good in Siege. Now, Grom does best when he can reliably predict where the enemy will move, and that's actually pretty easy to do in Siege because they usually go to where the bolts spawn. Because his attacks deal damage to multiple targets, I think he'll do okay on defense, not at actually getting rid of the Siege bot, but being able to land an attack on the Siege bot, and then his attack actually going backwards and hitting enemies that are actually following their Siege bot. I can also see him doing pretty well on offense as well. Now, there are only 3 parts on the map where he can actually hit the turret from a safe distance, and it's unlikely that you're going to reach 2 of them, which are on the left and the right side. You have to be straight up at the very top, but that is a possibility if you do happen to team wipe the enemy team. I'm not saying he's amazing at Siege, but I think that he's at least B or A tier. I'll go with B tier just to be safe. Next is Bounty, and Grom has the range to compete against the most competitive Bounty brawlers, but his attacks are predictable enough that I don't think he'll be able to hold his own on most maps, and on top of that, other than his super, he doesn't deal a lot of burst damage, which is usually really useful in Bounty. On the right maps, though, I could see him being used, so I'm willing to give him a B tier for this game mode. When it comes to Hot Zone, I don't expect to see Grom being used in it very often. Even when he's active within the zone, enemies will be able to effectively dodge most of the shots, other than his super. He doesn't actually have enough damage or the reload speed to deal with some of the tankier brawlers that are often played in Hot Zone. He might have some use on a few maps, though, so I'm willing to give him a B tier rating. Next, we have Knockout, and if Grom isn't very good in Bounty, I think that he'll probably be even worse in Knockout. His super does have a lot of burst potential, but it has such a low recharge rate that I don't expect him to have a lot of supers in Knockout. I think the C tier or the B tier is a good rating for him in the Knockout. I'll give him B tier just because I feel bad for giving him a low rating, but you know, he's not that great. In Showdown, I would not recommend playing in Showdown. Yes, you could climb trophies with him because you can push any brawler in solo Showdown with the right strategy, but as far as his competitive viability, if there is such a thing as competitive brawlers in Showdown, he would have to be in the F tier, I think. And then finally we have Duo Showdown, and he might be a little bit better, but he probably still isn't good enough to justify playing him, which is why I think he's in the C tier for duos. Overall, across all of the game modes, I would say Grom is probably a B tier brawler. He can be used on some maps with lots of walls and choke points, and also maps where, like Gem Grab or Siege, where you know where your enemies are actually going to be moving to. I've only played him against bots, so I'm really hoping that he'll feel differently, that he'll be a little bit stronger after, you know, I get a chance to play him against some real players, but I feel pretty good about that rating for now. Next sneak peek is done, but for those of you guys that want to see Grom's pins and hear all of his voice lines, I'm going to let them play so you guys can check them out. Before I do that, though, make sure you guys subscribe and use code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop.
Hey, calm down. I'm here. Remember the mission? The bear is sleeping. Do you copy?
It is time for party! Here comes the big boom! Don't rush the horses. More walkie, less talkie. Must remember, bring walkie-talkie. Optimism is lack of information. Things exploding. Gross Tosca. I am not in my own plate. Must be careful. I go now. Who is laughing at Grom now? I am jumping out of my pants. I have full pants of happiness. What you sow, you will reap. I put you under my belt. I am in chocolate. It was written on your forehead with one left hand. I am teaching, but you are not learning. I will show you where lobsters spend winter. Yoki Paki! Back then, we all had to suffer. Oi, what was this? I do not like. I hear the children laughing at me. Pancake! I am left with my own nose. Niet! Don't move. I will be returning.
Bravo, Oscar, Oscar, Mike. Clear the area. The pan flute is in the kitchen. The bear is in the circus. Don't forget the milk. The bear is dancing. Mission successful.
Pamiętaj oczywiście o zostawieniu łapeczki w górę z subiku na kanale, ponieważ już brakuje nam 2 subskrypcji do 50, a ja się z tobą żegnam. Pa, pa!